Happy New Year. So I get all these super cool cards from friends and family. And I kind of, some of them are pictures, some of them are like 18 pages long, talking about everything under the sun. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. And this is how I spent a large part of my 2021. When I wasn't working and I wasn't with family, I was basically doing, or I wasn't watching TV and watching the Seahawks get beat up. I've been doing this. So I wanted to send this to you. And what it is it's my top 10 list of my experiences hunting and fishing this past year in 2021. The how this came about, if you're wondering, like, why is that a big deal? So before 2021, I had very limited to almost no hunting and fishing experience. I went in the backyard with my dad growing up a couple times and shot some squirrels and rabbits. I went fishing like twice, I think. I don't remember catching anything. I do remember going to visit Tom and Debbie in Colorado, and they paid extra to go into a lake that was basically a feeding lake with a million fish. I was guaranteed to catch one. So I do remember that. But before that, I have very little hunting and fishing experience. So what happened was my good buddy Corey and I for years are talking about an epic adventure to Alaska fishing, or moose hunting in Montana. It's like, right, it's like, paying a guide thousands of dollars to go have this experience. So what happened was COVID hit, and I personally saw a little bit of I had a little taste of what my retirement is going to look like, and I'm like, oh, this is not good. Way too much time on my hand, way too bored, way too much. I mean, every day is like a weekend, so staying up late, not making good choices, blah blah blah. So Corey and I decided to go all in, everything you could possibly hunt for in the state of Washington. So not ease your way up, now that would make way too much sense, like all in. Literally the only thing I didn't officially hunt for or fish for was shrimp, coyotes, and elk. Everything else hunted for deer, bear, cougar, bobcat, clamming, fishing, multiple species, obviously, crabbing, duck hunting, turkey hunting, and all these adventures. So I want to share those with you. Before I forget, a couple things. The biggest thing I learned was not about how to handle the gun properly. Safety, what gun is for what animal, sighting it in, learning how to hit the darn target. All those were very important things. But the number one thing I learned over a year was the preparation and the scouting for the hunt is by far the most important. I spent more time scouting and prepping than I did actually hunting. And that was a huge learning curve, trying to navigate the state website for Fish and Game, trying to figure out where to go with public land, private land, begging people. I got to give a shout out to Jim and Shelly. We were fortunate enough to meet them, and they were a large part of this whole story. Great people. And if you're wondering why I'm not going into more detail about things, this is just a trailer for what I plan to do. I don't know if it'll ever come to fruition, but I plan to do I'm kind of going for Dumb and Dumber meets Steve Rinelli, the meat eater, who's like if you don't know who that is, he's on Netflix, and he's right now, at least one of the top hunting shows in the world. So Dumb and Dumber meets Steve Rinelli, kind of like a mix, but technically this is a documentary of my entire experiences. So all I'm doing here is giving you my top 10, just a little taste. And then I'm actually going to make episodes of each one where I go into detail. Let me show you a little bit about what that's going to look like. Okay. So if I share my screen here, I go, the whole thing's called, it's all about that Doug life, D-U-G, like thug life. Anyway, so that's all about that Doug life. I even got my own Doug life. So if you look here, I actually score. I know I'm a math teacher, I can't help it. So I score each one of my hunts and my trips. So these are all coded. So there's 4 and there's 6, and there's a couple I need to give. So there's about 12 total. And those are actual hunting, not just going to scouting. And then I have recorded every one of my expenditures that I've spent. And hunting and fishing is not a cheap hobby. That was probably one of the only benefits of being older and having a little money to start this hobby at age 50. But I have, these are all, let's say, crabbing. So these are Zoom videos of me describing the prep, how I did it, what I had, where I went on a map, everything. And I've done that for every one of these. Here's a scouting video. I even have my intro. I have like 3 intros about what more extensively and why I did this and where I'm doing. So anyway, there's that. Can stop sharing. So here we go. Top 10 list. Did I miss anything? Okay. So coming in at number 10, the name of this hunting trip was Off with Her Head. And what happened was, well, you'll see the video of why it's called Off with Her Head. By the way, this would be a good time to disclaimer. Boing, boing, boing. If you don't like hunting and fishing, seeing dead animals, then don't watch this. Gosh, I hate that when people freak out about that. Anyway, so number 10, Off with Her Head. What happened was, so my good buddy, my partner in most of this, we're officially 2 dudes and a gun. My good buddy, best friend Corey, he and I are doing most of this. I give him a lot of flack, but as a businessman, he's not even a manager, he's like a director. He's very busy and he doesn't have quite the amount of time that a teacher does to dive all in. So I give him a lot of flack, but when push comes to shove, he's my buddy. 2 dudes and a gun. And that was the original name of it. But then all of a sudden summer hit and Corey was non-existent. And so I'm like, nah, forget that. It's all about that Doug life. Okay. So anyways, number 10, Off with Her Head. Trevor's son, Corey's son, Trevor, great guy. I've known him literally since like 4 years old. He grew up, we were neighbors, and he's part of this as well. We call it special guest, 2 dudes and a gun with special guest, Trippy Trev. Anyway, Trevor has a dog. Okay, so he's invested too, but he's also a young man, just got married to a beautiful wife. Funny enough, now it's his wife and Corey's wife now have the same name, Rachel Vaught. It's kind of funny. So it's like RV and RV2. Anyway, so he's part of this, but he's just starting off. He has even less time than Corey. So anyway, he does what he can. But he got a dog, a beautiful golden retriever. So coming at number 10, we went to a pheasant farm, and we were good old Charlie girl. Charlie Blue, and at first she was a little bit iffy, but man, it was crazy to see that dog's natural instinct. So he brought her to a train, dropped her off for like a month or whatever it might have been, and trained, and we're gonna hopefully bring her duck hunting as well. But number 10 is Off with Her Head, pheasant hunting with Charlie. Fine being inside when it's 80 degrees on the river. I'm roughing it. Okay, so I'm talking about coming at number 9, Ashland Lakes. I decided to do my version of Alone. If you have not seen the series Alone, it is epic. Basically, as the name states, you put people in the wilderness, last person surviving gets the money. So I went up and I did my own version. I made my own lean-to, I made my own shelter, went fishing. It was fun. It was an epic experience. I actually had a almost 2-hour conversation with owls. That would be on the episode. I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to leave it at that. The reason why it's only it was a truly epic experience this past summer as part of the Doug Days of Summer. And the reason it's not higher is because I didn't catch any fish. And about 8 o'clock at night, when I've already given up fishing, I did a lot of practice on my fly fishing. I was pretty good. I got pretty good by that summer of fly fishing. I taught myself how to do that. A hiker came by and said, "Yeah, there's an invasive species that's wiped out all the fish population." This and then I'm like, "Oh, that's great, good to know." Was that was fun. Number 8, my clamming experience. Okay, this is one of the first times I started doing a lot of research on the website, the State Fish and Wildlife website, and learn when you can go and where you can go clamming. Once you find a good spot, and it's kind of like hunting. If you find a good spot, it's not that hard. You literally go around and you see all these clams. It was quite funny and interesting. But I got clams, I harvest them, I made an epic clam chowder. And to shout out to my boy Matt Dossie, some clam chowder, maybe not as good as the Darcy's can get on the East Coast, but it still was pretty good. Coming in at number 7. Now, the official rank is my Deception Pass trip with Corey. That's official, but I've lumped in basically several fishing trips that didn't bear any fruit. And that was also my good buddies Ned and Will's Great Adventure. That was about the same time. It was part of the Doug Days of Summer. And hanging out with those 3 guys, with Corey on his boat, and Ned and Will, who I don't get to see much at all. And actually they're both really good fishermen, so I learned some tips for fishing. But Ned really helped me on rowing my boat. So I bought a drift boat, and not easy on a fast river. This is not like what you think of the Colorado River with a whole bunch of rapids, but it's not some little creek. We were on the Sky Comish, and so that comes at number 7. Now we're starting getting into some kills, right? There we go. Number 6, I call this Doug Dynasty, and as like Duck Dynasty, and also known as Tips Down. So this is, I'm not going to share too many stories because that's what the videos are for, each episode. But this one's truly epic. I got to give a shout out to my boy James and his crew, Tips Down. So what happened was this: Corey and I and Trevor were fresh, and Charlie were fresh off the experience at the Pheasant. farm. When I say farm, it's not really hunting. It was like practice. I did shoot something, but it's kind of like it's. I go into details of what happens at a pheasant farm on the video. But anyway, so right after that, Corey's like, okay, now we got to find a similar place for ducks. Well, duck clubs are are kind duck clubs are very expensive. So it's kind of like you go there and they have heated blinds and they have food for you, and you're guaranteed ducks, and so I was a little discouraged, thousands of dollars of membership. So when I Googled duck clubs, Western Washington, one that came up was Tips Down. Well, okay, what happened was there's a group of kids when they're in high school came up with a website for a project because they're really into duck hunting. And so I called this guy, super cool guy, super nice. I mean, he sounds older, and I go, hey, are you run a duck club? He goes, no. And he goes, oh, so you're a guide? He's like, no, my buddies and I go hunting all the time though. And so I started talking. He goes, well, why don't you come up? So I met this guy on the internet. He invites me up, shows up. It's a bunch of 20-year-olds from Ferndale, coolest guys ever. I had an epic day learning everything I want to know about. These guys have been duck hunting, since they're 10 years old. And so they have 10 plus years of duck hunting. And I had the best time. And great group of guys. I got to give a shout out to my Ferndale boys. And I actually after that, I bought a whole bunch of stuff and I went out myself and I shot a duck by myself. I'm pretty proud. So I'm calling that Duck Dynasty, coming at number 6. Baby, 2 fur. I even got a hat, 2 fur. And if you look at the back, it says Expedition Leader. That's me when it comes to Corey and Trevor. But this was, I shot 2 turkey. Actually, I shot 3. 1 got away. 2 turkeys with 1 shot, 2 fur. And that's officially what Corey has on his ringtone, or not his ringtone, but when I call him, it says 2 fur, best hunter I know. And the reason why it's only ranked 5 out of 10 is because we were technically going deer hunting when we showed up. It didn't quite work out, but thanks to Jim, Jim and Shelly gave us a suggestion on DNR land. And by the way, I have a whole episode about what I learned about DNR land, wildlife refuge, which is kind of interesting. Wildlife refuge, you think they'd be safe? That's literally where you can go shoot them. Anyway, private land that's acceptable to hunt by written permission. Feel free to hunt, blah, blah, blah. And then one thing that blew my mind, all national forests during the hunting season is eligible to hunt. There's guidelines. You can't walk down, a popular trail and just shoot stuff. But that blew my mind. All the national forests is like legitimately eligible to hunt in. Anyway, 2 fur. That was a nice time. I finally got those turkeys. Number 4 is the big expedition. So I actually went, this is kind of like Alone 2, second time. I went out with Jesse though, and we built our own shelter, which we went back a second time and added to it, which is, we're starting to like growing. We call it our lake cabin. And the reason why this is on my hunting and fishing is I actually went down and caught some huge trout out of that lake and fly fishing, and that was just a fun time. Coming at number 3 is the second big trip that I went with Corey. Past spring turkey hunt. Corey had an epic shot on this turkey, and he killed it at 70 yards. Big old Tom. That's another thing. I learned all. I mean, oh my gosh, talking about trying to learn all the different animals. A Tom is an adult male. A Jake is an adolescent, or whatever you want to call it, male, and then they just call females hens, and that's kind of common with all birds, hens. Anyway, so that was our spring turkey, and spring turkey is fun because that's your first true hunting of the year. So the reason why that's ranked so high is I didn't kill anything, Corey did, but we had Trevor was there too. We had an epic time. Jim and Shelly came up because we rented his cabin on his land, and we had an epic time that night. Celebrated our big one turkey kill. But you have to understand, 2 weeks prior to that, Corey and I spent 3 days with probably driving well over 1,000 miles scouting with nothing. And so to come back and have a better idea of what to do and where to go and blah, blah, blah. That's why it's ranked so high. Probably my the most fun I had in the summer, and I had an incredible summer, was when I went with Kathleen crabbing. And there are so many good stories about that will be in the episode. But basically, when you go crabbing, you set the pots out, and they have to, you put like chicken or dead fish or whatever, and the crabs take hours to come in because they're not very fast. Obviously, they come and feed, so you have to let them soak, is the terminology. But we just it was 4th of July. It was the first time I had my boat in saltwater, which is a whole nother experience because you have tides, and all I have is a drift boat with electric motor. So there are some epic stories. Kathleen was so excited. She pulled I was actually rowing. So there's one story, which I'm not going to say now. I was rowing, not using my electric motor, which, by the way, my electric motor is a beast. It's way better than I thought it was going to be. And she pulls up a crab pot with 3, and usually what you want is double digits. And she pulls up 3, and she was so excited. I didn't tell her that wasn't a good catch, but she was so excited to pull up those crabs. She was so excited, and that came in at number 2. That was truly truly is a fun time. And drum roll. Number 1, I'm gonna be a little bit how should I say this? I'm gonna be a little bit vague on purpose for 2 reasons. 1, because this would for sure be the finale of my season 1, and 2, I'm like 4th down on the list of being able to get to this place, so it's kind of a secret. I'm not going to share it publicly. 4th, 3rd would be Corey, 2nd is Trevor, and Trevor married into we're able to go and hunt on this land. So they have some issues with poaching, so I don't want to talk about how epic, but there's a reason why it's number 1. It's not just because of the incredible experience. This one's called Lil Bill, rest in peace, and that's all I have to say. When you see the episode, you'll understand. So anyway, hey everybody, hopefully your 2022 is going to be epic, and I'm glad that I was able to share some of this with you of my experiences in 2021. So anyways, hey, I love you. Peace out. You know what it's all about. It's all about that Doug life.